There is something at work in my soul which I do not understand. Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. This is AMI Audiobook Review. I'm your host, Jacob Szymanski. The Creepy School Bus by Paul Hough is a teen/young adult horror full cast recording audiobook series. I want to say it's like a modernized version of the Magic School Bus with a lot more horror, but it's so much more than that. Seriously, this thing is like a fever dream at times, and I mean that in the best possible way. It's hard to even describe, but luckily the author is with me here to talk about it. Mr. Paul Hough, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jacob. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Can you give me a hand with this? What exactly is the Creepy School Bus? I want to hear it in your words.
So I was picking my daughter up from middle school for like a dental appointment. And we went to the dentist, and on the way back to her school, she pointed out this bus that was driving around. And she said, "Dad, I keep seeing this bus everywhere. And it's driving around, but, who would it be picking up right now? Because school's in session." And she just said, "It's creepy." And that was actually what gave me the inspiration for the Creepy School Bus, was a bus that drives around, picks up kids, and the kids are never seen again.
And they're taken to places that are somewhat beyond our world. There are some fantastical elements to this, which I wasn't expecting at first. That took me for a loop. But this whole thing, when you first put pen to paper, it was to create a sort of texting series on YouTube, which ended up being quite popular. Can you give us a description of what that looks like?
Sure. So I have a YouTube channel. It's called Don't Turn Around. And Don't Turn Around originated with me writing different stories and my partner, Eddie McGee, narrating those stories. So we were a narration channel on YouTube. And at some point, I tried a text-in-story format. And a text-in-story format is where the story is told by two people texting back and forth. So we're essentially reading their texts as they're in a particular situation. So for Creepy School Bus, I focused on a 10-year-old girl who is held late after school one day, and she misses her school bus home. And a backup bus arrives, so she gets on the backup bus. And as she's on the backup bus, which is completely empty, and it's different than the regular school buses. It's much shorter. The windows are blacked out. There's a crack in the glass.
It's not quite right.
It's definitely not quite right. There's a sign that says no cell phones allowed. And she gets creepy vibes from the driver too. And as she's secretly texting her friend without the driver seeing, her friend is like, "Wait, backup bus? Our school doesn't have a backup bus." And so that's where she starts to realize that she might be in a sketchy situation, and that's how the story begins. And when I wrote Creepy School Bus as a text-in story and I put it out on the YouTube channel, it went pretty viral.
It did, yeah.
And yeah, we got 1 million views the first day. The second day, we got another 1 million views. The third day, another 1 million views, and it just spread. It definitely made a lot of kids scared of getting on a school bus.
How does that make you feel, knowing that you scared children?
I think it's fantastic. My dad was a filmmaker. He made both Disney movies and he made both horror movies. And he actually made the very first Disney horror movie, which was Watcher in the Woods. And part of growing up with him, is he would scare us, and we would love it. And in the same way, Disney, like Walt Disney, would love to scare people.
That's true.
You know, like what the kids, you know, we get adrenaline rushes when we get scared, and you know, a lot of us find very happy memories with that. My dad would drop me, my brother, and sister off at a cemetery at midnight and have us walk through into the cemetery to see who could walk the furthest without turning around.
Wow.
And you know, scaring kids, it's I'm very happy about it.
And
because when I was scared as a kid, they are some of the fondest memories I have.
it's exciting in a way. Like, yes, it's terrifying, but it's also thrilling. And you can see why a kid would find that fun, right? There's something exciting, mysterious about being in that place that you're afraid, you're spooked out. It's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And so this original texting series on YouTube, the first episode is sitting at a little over 10 million views, by the way, which is pretty decent. Your channel has 300,000 subscribers on it right now. So needless to say, it did all right. But just to be clear, this whole story was told exclusively through text messaging. Is that right? Like exclusively?
Yeah. In season 2, we went on Twitter or X, and we did. It was told through tweets. But
Cool.
yeah, essentially the whole channel then shifted from being a narration channel to being a text story channel,
Right.
where people read the stories on screen.
This is an audiobook podcast, and what you've created is a texting video, which is pretty much the exact opposite of an audiobook. But you recently, in early 2025, released the Creepy School Bus as an audiobook. Not just that, it's a full cast recording with sound effects and original music. And it's available now. Part 1 is. Part 2 is coming out on March 11th, 2025. And we have a sample if you guys want to get a taste of it. Here you go.
Hold on. I'll call you back. A bus is coming.
Hi there. You getting on? I'm the backup bus for kids who missed the main one. All right. If you don't want to get on, then that's up to you. You can stay here and walk wherever you're going. Your choice. Sit anywhere. You've got every seat to choose from.
Thanks.
What's your stop?
Smith and Westmount, after Highland Park.
You got it. Sit back, relax. You're lucky. You're my last and only pickup. We'll go directly there. You don't have a phone, do you? See that sign? No cell phones. I need your cell phone if you have one.
So that was a sample of the Creepy School Bus by Paul Hough. And as you can tell, this is a fully produced, full cast recording of the audiobook with fantastic acting, really great sound design, sound effects, and original music. What was it like for you, Paul, to see your original creation as a text story being told in this fully immersive stereo audio world?
I think the final result is amazing. It really brought all the characters to life, and you really feel like you're going on that journey with them. And a text story, it's a completely different experience. And I feel I'm on the bus with all these characters as they're encountering all these horrors and the situations they they come up against.
To give everyone an idea of the tone of this story, in some of your marketing, you use the line, "The camaraderie of the Goonies and Stand By Me with the suspense and excitement of aliens." And I think that's super accurate. I'll also add that for a teen and young adult story, it's quite dark. And it's super creative and genuinely spooked me out. And Paul, especially Langley, the actress who played her, sorry, the name.
So the actress who played Langley, who is the evil school teacher, was Christina Hendricks.
Unbelievable performance, eh?
Yeah,
Wow.
she's terrific. I a lot of the she's a very well-known actress, and we have some other well-known people in it. But some of the best performances too are from some of the kids who I think are just absolutely remarkable.
Were you how involved were you in the creation of this audiobook?
So I wrote the audiobook, and then I was there for casting and had casting approval, and I didn't direct the audiobook. It was directed by Rick Rohan, who's an award-winning audio director. Graphic Audio was the company that put together the audiobooks. And Recorded Books is the company releasing the audiobooks. So after the I'll say the first edit, I had about 20 pages of notes, and it took about 9 months for the second version of Creepy School Bus to come along.
Wow.
This whole process, making both Creepy School Bus 1 and Creepy School Bus 2, has taken about 4 years from start to finish. Yeah. A lot of that was casting, making sure that we cast the right person for the right role. And it really is a big, epic production. There's about 25 actors involved. And it was really important to me to make sure we had the right voices for the to bring these characters to life.
Did the actors record in the same studio, in the same room, or were they scattered across the world?
No, some were in New York, some were in LA, some were in Virginia. So scattered across America.
It's interesting that you came from filmmaking and transitioned into an audio only format, like an enhanced audiobook. What was that transition like for you?
I would say incredibly enjoyable, because when you make a film, you visualize everything ahead of time, and you storyboard it out, and you know what you're going for.
Right.
This to me was very, very similar, but it just didn't involve visuals. So I just had to make sure that everything I wrote conveyed the visuals that I imagine in my head. So I found there to be some big parallels there.
In a way, you kind of have to hand over some of the imagination to the listener, because when you're making films, you dictate the visuals, right? And when you're reading a book or an audiobook or an enhanced audiobook like this one, your mind fills in the gap with your mind's eye. And so you're kind of relinquishing control in a way.
Yeah, you are. But you can also add in, or one has to add in description to describe, or to help the audience understand what they're supposed to be imagining.
Is that challenging? Because you also don't want to come off being overly making it too expositional, right?
Yeah. So I so honestly, I found it incredibly I found it incredibly enjoyable as opposed to challenging. Um, but being challenging is part of the fun of making something. So when I'm writing the book, it's a lot of fun for me to write, and those challenges, yeah, they might be challenges, but they're fun challenges. So it's just part of the puzzle of putting everything together. In the same way that when one is coming up with a story, you want, there's a puzzle of how all the pieces link together, and how the ending, how you reach the ending, and you put foreshadow things, and you put different elements along the way so everything makes sense. It's a puzzle. And so in the same way, I really enjoyed the challenge of doing this, and I really hope to be doing more in the future.
I can imagine that it must be quite the challenge to write characters who are children, because you have to put yourself in the mindset of a child. Oh, by child we mean the characters in this book are between 10 and 15, something like that, around those ages. There are some adults, but most of them are like teens and preteens, right? How do you handle that? How do you put yourself in that childlike mindset?
So I think I had the advantage that my YouTube channel has a very young demographic. Its audience generally are kids who like horror. So
Right.
I constantly get to see the comments and see the style in which they talk, and immerse myself in that. And the stories I make on my YouTube channel are aimed at kids. They're like my 7th grade camping trip, my first day at middle school. So plus I have my own daughters, so I hear how they speak. Then the rest is just imagination.
What kind of feedback are you hearing from your audience? Both on this texting story that you released initially back in 2017 and this new audiobook version in early 2025. Like, what's the feedback that you've gotten? I'm curious.
Yeah, so the people on my YouTube channel absolutely love it. Overall, we've had really good reviews. So on NetGalley and Goodreads and places people are leaving reviews, they've been overwhelmingly good. So I just hope more and more people get to listen to it.
Are you ever inspired by the comments that you see? And like if somebody comments, they especially like a certain element of the story, like, oh, I love all the suspense elements. I love the sequences in the tunnels and stuff like that. Like, is that something that you're going to be more likely to lean on when you're writing later on?
Yeah. I definitely think it is. I'm also inspired by negative comments, because inevitably, when one puts out a piece of work, it's not going to please everybody. So you are going to get negativity and things that people don't like. So one review I read today was something about who put in the scene about them stopping to take a pee break, where they get off the bus and they have to pee.
I was wondering the same thing.
Well, I did, because I thought it was really fun, and my audience loves that. And so, it's I like put it in things that we don't necessarily expect, but to me it makes storytelling more exciting.
I never expected to hear pee streams in stereo in this book.
Yeah, well, if you're on a bus for a few hours, and at some point, the kids have to get off, but it's also part of the plot. It leads to it leads to them getting separated.
So in this story, very early on, what happens is, this is not a spoiler, but kids get put on this creepy school bus that's not like a real school bus. It's a mysterious school bus, and it drives to a park and then somehow ends up in a tunnel. And it's very unclear where the entrance to the tunnel is. There's like a secret entrance to a tunnel that this bus drives in. It's like an underground tunnel with a road, and it's like this endless tunnel. And that is so creepy to me, Paul, that they're driving in a tunnel for like hours, and it has this like mysterious entrance, and the kids have no idea where they go, and then they end up in this like underground parking lot where there's like hundreds of other creepy buses. Where did that inspiration come from? Because that's the point of the story that got me hooked. And I'm a 28-year-old dude, and it's at that point I was like, okay, I'm interested. The endless tunnels is so strange.
Yeah, I'm like, well, what would scare me? And I want to try and write what would scare and excite me. So if someone gets on, if someone gets on a bus and they're, and so initially when the story first came out and it went viral, I decided to turn it into a series. So I had to figure out, okay, well, what is actually behind this? And so if it's just some like government conspiracy or something I'll say very normal, that kind of bored me. So I constantly try and think, well, what makes something more exciting? And so that's just kind of how the tunnel idea happened.
And the tunnel is only one of the elements of this book that got me pretty intrigued. The other one was an FBI agent who's working undercover who has crutches, and his crutches are like this Mr. Gadget type device that has all sorts of little doohickeys attached to it. I thought that was really cool. There's also one of the kids has a stutter. The FBI agent has a crutch. Did you purposely or with intentionality have disability representation in this book?
Yes. Yeah. So FBI agent Warren, who is the FBI agent who goes on the journey with the kids to
such a cool dude.
Yeah, he's a really, really cool. He's a really, really cool hero type. Very much inspired by my partner in my YouTube channel, Don't Turn Around, Eddie McGee, who is a amputee in real life. And I've worked with Eddie on many, many projects. And there isn't really a great representation of heroes with disabilities.
Next to none, right?
Yeah. And so on my YouTube channel, for the longest time, this FBI agent Warren has been the main character. Like all of my stories on my YouTube channel are linked, and they it's kind of like a Marvel universe, but horror. And so Agent Warren is, he has one leg, but that doesn't stop him being the head of the serial killer task force. And in this case, being part of the investigation into the creepy school bus. And Eddie in real life is just like one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And so he, we've done projects before in which he does wire work and he does somersaults, and we've done martial art horror films and stuff like that. So he definitely inspired the character and is the character. And in the audiobook, he voices the character too. And he has a very, very, very cool sounding voice.
He does, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so part 1 is out already on audible.ca for anyone who's interested. Part 2 is coming out on March 11th. What's in store for part 2?
So Chris Jericho joins the cast, the WWE wrestler.
Sick.
Yeah,
Wow.
and so we also have Erica Alexander in the cast. She was from the film Get Out and Living Single. Part 2 is, I would say, Creepy School Bus 1 is action adventure horror. Creepy School Bus 2 goes full on horror. Now the characters have been established, you really like them, and now this is when you really root for them not to get killed off. And part 2, I think, is the best thing I've ever written. And so I really hope people do watch Creepy School Bus 1 and 2 and go on a tremendous, exciting, and fun journey.
Yeah, available on Audible. Paul, where can people follow you on socials if you want to share with us?
Don't Turn Around on YouTube is the main place. So
Perfect. Paul, thank you so much for making time. Good luck with part 2. I really appreciate your time. Have a good one.
Jacob, I appreciate it.
Of course. That was Paul Hough. He's the creator of The Creepy School Bus, which is available on Audible now. And I was listening to it deep into the night, and it was well worth it. That's all the time we have for this edition of AMI Audiobook Review. AMI Audiobook Review airs weekends at 1 p.m. Eastern on AMI Audio and repeats every 6 hours, but we also make ourselves easy to find. We're on all the big podcasting platforms, and that includes YouTube. You can email us at audiobookraview@ami.ca for any feedback or questions or comments you might have. We're going to get to it. We always appreciate your contributions. You can also follow us on Instagram at AMI Audiobook Review. I'm Jacob Szymanski. Have a good one.